Our featured guest tonight is an accomplished and well-respected guitarist in the blues rock genre. She got her start at the age of just 16 upon being discovered by Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics, and she hasn't slowed down since. Her impressive chops have earned her a place working with some of the best in the business, and over the last 2 decades, she has amassed a sizable catalog of critically acclaimed solo albums. Here to chat about it all, and her new record, Heavy Soul, is none other than Joanne Shaw Taylor. Joanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So, where did your love of music come from? Was it like a family legacy, or did it come to you in some other way?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I grew up in a very musical household. My dad played guitar, massive blues fan, sort of the typical English lad that grew up in the 60s and got to watch Jimi Hendrix on Top of the Pops and all of, the Rolling Stones and the Brit blues invasion. My older brother also played guitar, massive shredder, heavy metal fan. So slight different genre to me. And then my mom was a dancer and a massive lover of Motown and soul music. So there was always music playing in the house.
So that's the kind of music that filled the halls of your home growing up. Now, my understanding is that you started off being classically trained and then at some point segued over.
Yeah, I started playing classical guitar at school. They offered lessons from the age of 8, which I did, and it gave me enough confidence to know I could play guitar, which is nice at that age, particularly when you're sort of quite average at school and, sports. But just found it very, very disciplined. And then, yes, my dad played me a Stevie Vaughan DVD, and there was just something about that style of guitar playing he was a very technical guitar player, but blues for me was much more about, there weren't really as many rules. It was about how you put your personality into the instrument and use it to express yourself. So I just sort of love that sense of freedom that it gave me.
Now, a significant part of your story is that you were discovered by Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics. What is the chain of events that led to that moment for you?
That was kind of a strange one, actually, because it really came down to the fact my mom at the time had breast cancer when I was 15. And had undergone a mastectomy and was having chemo. And it was a friend of hers at her gym had also undergone treatment for it and was doing a charity gig for it was called Breast Friends. It was a support group for women with breast cancer. And they asked me to perform, which I did. And it just so happened a friend of Dave's was in the audience and I'd done a little demo CD and he passed it on to him. So it was, one of those really bizarre things that, obviously, if my mom hadn't have had breast cancer, it probably wouldn't have happened. But which is a horrible thing to realize that it is what happened.
Yeah, it's an odd butterfly effect moment there.
Yeah.
So did you get a call at some point from Dave himself, or how did that come? What was the next step in that chain of events?
He phoned our landline to age myself the next day and spoke to my dad, and I was in my bedroom playing guitar, practicing, and my dad came running in going, Dave Stewart's just phoned, he's doing a record label, he wants to sign you. And I went, oh, that's cool, who's Dave Stewart? And he's like, Eurythmics. And I'm like, I've got no idea what that is, it's the year 2000 and I live in Solihull. And he went, Annie Lennox. And I was like, oh yeah, I kind of know that name. And he said, he wants us to go down to London tomorrow and take you down there and to meet him. And all I thought was, oh, that's good, because I was meant to be in school tomorrow. So that sounds like a good day off, to be honest. So, but that always made his wife laugh, that I had no idea who he was.
At what point did you realize, okay, this might actually be a potentially life-changing moment for me?
I think I remember going to Dave's, I think it was his 50th birthday. And when we left, it was like a private, room in a restaurant. And when we left, you couldn't see anything for light bulbs going off because the paparazzi were there, because Bono was there and Damien Hirst and Annie and Dave. And I think at that point, I kind of realized this isn't what most of my friends at school do on a weekend, So I think there was that moment of like, oh, I'm very lucky to be doing this. It's an experience that most people don't get.
Now, at what point in the journey and I'm going to make an assumption here, at what point in your journey did Dave introduce you to Annie Lennox, or did not come by an introduction from him? What sticks out to you the most about that first meeting with Annie?
I don't remember the first meeting. She was just always around, to be honest, because I mean, they're still very close. And what was really lovely was because I'd moved to London and was living with another female artist on the label, Nadira X from Jamaica, and we're still best friends. Her daughter's my goddaughter. I just had this nice crew. We'd go out with Annie and Anushka, Dave's wife. So, you know, more on a personal level, it was incredible to be surrounded by these very strong, successful, brilliant, loving, you know, kick-ass kind of women, really, from a young age, who were from, you know, Annie's Annie Lennox, but she's from Scotland, and Nads was from Kingston, Jamaica, and I'm from a small village, and Anushka grew up in Paris. You know, that it, you know, that's the lovely thing about music, is it really opens up your life, your social circle.
One event that really stuck out to me when reading about your music journey is when you played lead guitar for Annie Lennox at the Queen of England's Diamond Jubilee. I mean, for an entire country, there's hardly a bigger and more unique occasion. What's the story there, and how did that gig come about for you?
That was just one of those fluky things. Annie was performing, and she decided she wanted to do a bluesier version of There Must Be an Angel. And I guess her and a musical director was sitting around one day thinking about who they could get in to perform on it. And yeah, I mean, I hadn't spoke to her in years, and she remembered me, and I got an email the next day saying Annie Lennox is trying to get hold of you. And yeah, I said yes, obviously. She said, there's a big gig this weekend. Do you want to do it? And I knew, you know, because I mean, I was in England at the time, and everything was gearing up for it. So I guess the big gig was probably going to be that big gig. But again, on a, you know, a personal level at the time, my mom was going a lot of chemo for a ovarian. Unfortunately, we did lose her the following March. But I do remember it was starting to get tough for her, and getting that phone call, it was like a new lease on life for her. She was going shopping for an outfit to wear, and, you know, I'm going like, Mom, you're not coming. You're just watching it on the television. So it was just, you know, on a personal thing, it was so amazing that my mom got to see that.
Famously, your pedal board did not cooperate with you on that day.
It did not.
What was going through your head when your pedal board was not functioning properly at the time of your solo? I mean, at any time during those, I would presume, nervy moments, did you think the solo might actually come off better that way?
I don't know. I think I just thought, well, it is what it is. Because what had happened was I was standing back by the pedal board, and we're all on ears because it's such an unusual gig. The monarchy can't be seen to be endorsing any brand. So we weren't allowed our amps on the stage. They were underneath the stage. So I was already quite far away from the amp on a wireless. The plan was I was to play rhythm, and then when it's time for the solo, I was to hit the boost pedal and walk towards Annie. And looking back on it, what I'd done was I was playing rhythm with the boost on, and then I turned it off and walked towards Annie for the solo. But of course, I couldn't, you know, you're on live television in front of millions of people, plus there's millions of people there. It's like, well, I can't just walk back. So it was just that thing of like, well, it's working. It is what it is. It's a bit quiet, but hey ho. Yeah, I think in that moment, it's, you know, what else are you going to do? You just got to roll with it, haven't you?
What was it like to find out Stevie Wonder actually loved the sound you brought to that performance and complimented you on it? I mean, did you find out from Stevie himself, or was that something, a comment you read somewhere afterwards?
No, his guitar, I think it was his drum tech flagged me down on the night as I was trying to leave. And we got chatting, and he's like, oh, Stevie, you know, was trying to find you to tell you that he loved your clean bluesy sound. I was like, oh, well, thanks, because it was kind of a happy accident, but, you know, please tell Stevie thank you for me. So no, that was, which I thought was very, very sweet of him to make the effort to come find me.
Well, it's funny because it kind of creates a little bridge between, I was going to ask you some questions about, you know, you working heavily with Joe Bonamassa, who was on our show earlier this year. How did you first meet Joe, and did you guys hit it off right away? I mean, what did you guys bond over?
We did. It's funny, I was talking about this yesterday to somebody asked, and I met him in 2008, I think. I opened up for him at a festival in Norway, and it's one of those events where it's in the middle of nowhere in Norway, and all the artists are put in the same sort of little lodge. And I bumped into him afterwards, and he'd watched me play. I think he'd asked us up to jam as well, and we got chatting, and ended up all night just sitting in the lobby chatting. And it was, you know, I'm very lucky that I've still got my two best friends from school who've known me, you know, since I was 2. But only Joe knows what it's like to sit in the back of a car when you're 14 years old and have your mom and dad drive you over to, you know, or fly you to Switzerland to play with BB King. You know, so not that we were sort of Macaulay Culkin and massive child stars, but it was a slightly different thing that most children don't sort of go through.